Greetings everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today's video is a very special one for me because I get to talk about one of my all-time favorite genres of music, neo-folk music, or dark folk music, or even sometimes called apocalyptic folk music. Neo-folk, in case you don't know, is a primarily European musical movement which has a lot of themes of melancholy, European history, literary influences, and neo-paganism in all of the lyrics, and it's almost the very common ground in almost all neo-folk projects. Today in this video, I'm basically going to talk about some of my all-time favorite albums in this genre, and it's my hope that after doing so, you'll check some of these albums out, because this is music that I have held near and dear to my heart for about 20 years now, and it's a genre of music that I suspect I will continue to love for many years to come. It's also autumn right now. It's a cold, gloomy, rainy day, so it's felt like just like the perfect day to do this video. So this is a neo-folk video, and I hope you guys enjoy this. These are some of my all-time favorite albums. Before we get into actually talking about these albums, just to tell you a little bit about what neo-folk music is and how it sounds. I guess when most people think of folk music, they probably think of something perhaps a little more upbeat or maybe just normal sounding, and I feel like that's not the case with neo-folk music at all. I mean, obviously, as I've already mentioned, lyrically it's quite different from anything mainstream, but musically it is often combined acoustic guitars and voice with lush synthesizers, sometimes other instruments like trumpets or accordions make their way into the mix. And much like black metal or dark ambient or, you know, any of like the dark genres of music I personally love, it's not really about technical prowess or anything like that. It's very atmospheric music, and I think, like, you know, most of the songs have a very simple approach, but just very atmospheric, you know, very dark and just melancholy, and, you know, it's the type of music when you listen to it, you really feel something, you can really make a connection to it. At least for me, that was what happened when I first heard it 20 years ago, and it was, to say it was instant love is an understatement. It was something that really spoke to me in a special way, and went down the rabbit hole really quickly, and I haven't come up since then, and it's just a genre of music I love, and you know, like as I said, all, you know, dark music, it just has this strange sort of connection, you know. You can hear other types of, you know, like, at least for me, also my other favorite music I can hear in neo-folk. I mean, there's dark ambient characteristics in neo-folk, there's industrial kind of characteristics here and there, but obviously it's the basis is still, like, you know, folk music and acoustic strum and guitars, but it's interesting when you kind of make those connections between other genres and you hear that similar atmospheric and just a really you know, dark approach to create music. So for me personally, I got into neo-folk music back in 2001, and it came via Agalox of Stone, Wind, and Pillar. And you may say to yourself, wait a minute, Agalox a metal band? Yeah, they undoubtedly are. But on this EP, they did a cover of Soul Invictus' song, Kneel to the Cross. And when I first heard this cover, it just really, the lyrics, the atmosphere to it was just really, it resonated deep in my soul right from the get-go. And I wanted to know more about, like, who Soul Invictus was, what the lyrics in this song, and just like this strange, alluring atmosphere that I had never heard before. And you know, this is 2001, so back then, obviously, you know, the internet and this, you know, information wasn't as readily available. So I remember just, you know, scouring the internet for all kinds of information on this project, and, you know, finding out just all the details that I could about neo-folk music back then, ordering a lot of albums. And I remember between like that period of like 2001, and it kind of went for a couple of years where I was very, very immersed in this genre. It was something I just absolutely loved, and it, for, in a manner of speaking, was like the genre of music I really preferred over all others. It was just something that I loved. I mean, I couldn't get enough of it. Of course, like all good genres of music, neo-folk is not without a little controversy. And that controversy basically is that a lot of neo-folk artists have been basically flagged inappropriately as fascists. And the reason for that is because of the often like European pride that a lot of bands will have in their lyrics, or, you know, symbolism and stuff like that, or runic symbols and stuff like that. It it triggers stupid liberals to think that they're automatically Nazis and they're these harmful people, even though they're just making this very gentle, acoustic, beautiful music. And people want to think right away. Oh, it's these people are bad people. And so far to date, I have never come across a single Neofolk artist that is actually a fascist in any way. So, I mean, if you're new to this genre and you start seeing people talking about that, it would be best to ignore it because it's simply not true. So with the little introduction out of the way, let's talk about Neofolk music and some of my personal favorite albums. All-time favorite albums in the Neofolk genre, and honestly one of the first albums I ever bought is Death in June's Rose Clouds of Holocaust. Death in June is the ongoing work of Douglas Pierce, who formed the band in 1981, originally as a post-punk band and as a three-piece, but pretty quickly into their career, other members split and went on to other projects, and it's basically been the sole work of Douglas Pierce ever since. Out of all the Neofolk bands that have been accused of being Nazis and Nazi sympathizers, it is undoubtedly Douglas Pierce and Death in June that have taken the most hits and have had shows canceled and protests, and a lot of this just stems from the fact that Douglas has used certain symbols, modified might I add, that have references to the Third Reich and Hitler. And what I heard once, and the main reasoning for this was because Douglas Pierce, who has been openly homosexual his entire adult life, and is also Jewish, might I add, he himself has had a fascination with the Third Reich his whole life, and he finds SS officers from that era of human history to be sexually alluring. That's what I've heard anyway. I don't know if that's true, but I've heard that as one of the main reasons why this has been themes and the symbols have been used in the project. But it's been a curse because of this. I mean, obviously, people that take everything for face value without digging deeper into it have, right away automatically think he's a racist or he's a Nazi or something like that, and it's unfortunately plagued his entire career and kept him very underground and as in some cases not even allowed him to play live when he wanted to. The music of Death in June is again very simple, just fast-strung acoustic guitars, usually with keyboards. Sometimes trumpets in the background, or accordions, other instruments like that, and lyrically, it's about again some themes of homosexuality, poetry, European history, paganism, runes, all that kind of stuff, and it's very simple music, but it has this very just very lush and just very atmospheric and dark quality to it, which just really appealed to me, and just I don't know, I can't explain it exactly, but I have loved this album for 20 years now, and it's a simple affair, but it's a total masterpiece in my opinion. It's the songs are simple, but it's very catchy, it's very memorable, very atmospheric. It's an album that has actually been banned in Germany because I guess the German government for some reason thinks it's a harmful album that will corrupt the youth of Germany into becoming Nazis again or something like that. So it's not on streaming services or anything. I'd probably banned from YouTube too, for all I know. I don't know, but it is a great album. It is, as far as I'm concerned, like one of the best in the genre, a true starting point in this genre. I mean, if you like this is one of those albums where, like, if you can get your hands on it or just hear it and it resonates with you, then go deeper down the rabbit hole, because this is just amazing music, just great stuff. I should also mention that over the years, Death in June has changed quite a bit. As I said, originally as a post-punk band to what is now known as Neofolk. They have also dabbled in more industrial and noisescapes, dark ambient, and even, I guess, more experimental territory that I guess cannot easily be described. It's more heavily keyboard-based, synthesizer-based, whatever have you, and even some sort of even kind of dancey, songs here and there, both in the mid '80s and then later on in the '90s. There was some stuff like that. It is a very diverse project that I implore you to check out, regardless of what your opinions of, or whatever your political, opinion may be, or what your opinion might be of Death in June after reading about them a little bit. It's fantastic, beautiful music, and for me personally, it's just some of the most wonderful music I've ever heard, and having listened to it for over 20 years now, it's by far music that I will continue to listen to for many years to go, and just fantastic stuff. So again, it's Death in June, just a great project. I highly recommend it. So on the front cover we have a rose and two men, no doubt probably symbolizing a homosexual wish. I don't know. In the back cover you can see the song titles, and as you can see there's no song title about burning you know who I'm talking about. Nothing about that. There's the inside booklet. Picture of Douglas Pierce. And this album, of course, was released in the early 90s, I believe, 1992. Lyrics. An interesting thing to say about the lyrics, too, is that they're very, I think very elusive might be a way to describe them. It's not very obvious. There's lots of, places and, things that have influenced Douglas over his life to, influence his lyrics. And, I once found something on the internet, I think that must have been the old Death in June website, where he kind of explains some lyrics, and it's kind of like, oh, okay, that makes sense, but otherwise it's kind of just the lyrics are sort of, in a way, kind of nonsensical, I guess, in a lot of ways, where you're just like, okay, what is this about? But, me personally, I've never really been a lyric guy, perhaps. Sometimes I am, but, generally speaking, it's just whatever. Music is music, and lyrics are lyrics, and, it's all about the music for me. It always has been, and I don't really, if the lyrics are very obvious, I guess, I don't really ponder it too well, I guess, if that makes sense. I don't know. But, fantastic album. If you can find it, definitely pick it up. Just phenomenal recording, a true classic of the new folk genre. That's Death in June's Rose, Clouds, and Holocaust. Well, continuing on, this is another album and artist that's very personal for me, and I guess in a way you could say I discovered this artist right at the perfect time in my life, or maybe not. As I've noted in some of my older videos, when I was in my early 20s, I was very depressed, very melancholy, and had contemplated suicide many times, and just wasn't finding much happiness in the world. And I would often find a lot of solace in melancholy and dark music, because I knew that there was other people out there like me who felt the same thing, and I was a very lonely person. I didn't have a girlfriend or anything like that, so themes of lovelessness and just being alone really resonated with me, because again, I knew that I wasn't the only one out there, and it was a weird time when I look back on it all, and when I think about it, there was no real special reason why any of it happened. I think it was just, that teenage angst, going into my 20s and uncertainty for the future and not knowing what to expect out of life, and it just, it came to a head and just really hit me hard, as I think life does for a lot of people. But anyway, ranting aside, when I discovered Soul Invictus in my early 20s, it was, again, much like Death in June, it was just, it was instant. It was instant love, and I went down the rabbit hole, just buying as many albums as I could find at the time, and just became completely immersed in this dark folk, neo-folk music, or folk noir, as the Soul Invictus band leader Tony Wakeford calls it. Now, Soul Invictus, in case you don't know, is a name of an ancient Roman sun god, and the word Soul Invictus is Latin and literally means the unconquered sun. As I mentioned earlier, Soul Invictus was my gateway into new folk music, and the way Tony Wakeford composed his music, at least in the early days, which was 1987 when his first album came out, it was much more perhaps stripped down and simplistic, just, fast strummed acoustic guitars with small keyboard backing and, sort of dark ambient kind of soundscapes, industrial soundscapes behind it. But as the years would progress, it would become much more, I guess, classical influenced. Violins and cellos would play a bigger part in the role, and it would become, as I said, more folk noir, as he called it, very dark and depressing, and just had that feel, that noir kind of feel to it, if you know what I mean. And when I heard this stuff, it was just I felt like I discovered something really special. And I suppose it was, it still is now, because there wasn't a lot of stuff like that, to compare it to at the time, and it just really deeply resonated with my soul. And as far as favorite albums from Soul Invictus is concerned, it is very hard to pick an album. I also really love the album The Blade, which is actually, I think the first album I picked up from Soul Invictus. But this album here, called In the Rain, it has a very specific theme of loneliness and love, lack of love, and it just has this very sort of murky, wet, cold, gray day kind of feel to it. And it is an album that I have, been playing for 20 years now, and just it's amazing, I guess, to say the least. Now, the thing about Soul Invictus that has, I suppose, divided and pushed some people away is that Tony Wakeford does not necessarily have the best voice. His voice is one-dimensional and a bit boring, and my wife, if I play Soul Invictus in front of her, she will actually get mad at me and tell me to turn it off. That's how much she hates his voice. But me personally, again, kind of just how I don't necessarily care much about lyrics. Voice isn't a big deal to me as long as the music has atmosphere. And this music has incredible atmosphere, just very dark and melancholy, and just if you're in that right headspace for it in particular, it can really affect you. And again, going back to my early 20s when I heard this stuff, it was just I thought these albums were wrote just for me or something. It just really was wow, man, just really beautiful music, You had all the string instruments, piano, and some percussion and some dark ambient industrial characteristics pushed from the back. It was just really amazing stuff. And still to this day, this is a project I absolutely love. I don't own everything the project's released because he has had something like 15 albums over the years, and some are out of print, hard to get now, but maybe I'll change that soon now that I'm doing a video on Neofolk music. But yeah, just great stuff. If you want to hear any more neoclassical influenced Neofolk project, Soul Invictus is by far the best in the genre, and again, a perfect starting point for this genre of music. And if if you like this, keep exploring. You know, this is everything. Well, I should say everything in Soul Invictus discography is great, but a lot of it's really just fantastic music. And if you can get past Tony's not so agreeable voice, and man, you're gonna discover a band you absolutely love. So on the front cover we have this. I guess this woman just walking in the rain, and I mean that kind of I guess sets up the whole vibe for this record. It has a very lonely atmosphere to it, and just very bleak, very sad sounding. The cover artwork was done by a visual artist from New York known as Tor Lundvall, and he has done several other covers for Soul Invictus over the years. This is one of his, I guess, maybe more simple ones, but. His paintings have always had this very sort of these lonely creatures and these sort of landscapes kind of feel to them, very very special, very atmospheric. There's the track listing booklets. Lyrics. More pictures, paintings from Tor Lundvall. People, they sometimes ask me, like, why do you still buy physical media? Why, like, all this stuff is always, like, it's all on Spotify, you can just get it there, man. Like, well, the thing of it is, like, music for me will always be, and like for me, music will always be a physical thing, even though it's, in a manner of speaking, it's nothing tangible. But, music, it has to be released in a physical form to truly enjoy it. Because, like, as you can see, there's visuals to go with this music to help you understand it better. And the visuals for this album in particular, and, most albums, it helps to... for you to like, understand the story or whatever, the feels that are meant for the album. And, I felt like they did just a fantastic job, just really great visuals for this album, beautiful, beautiful paintings by Tor Lundvall, great stuff. So anyway, that's In the Rain by Soul Invictus. One of the details I forgot to mention was Tony Wakeford was an original member of Death in June, but he left the band in 1984. He then briefly went on to a post-punk band called Above the Ruins, who had a single album called Songs of the Wolf in, I want to say, 1986, and then, Soul Invictus started in 1987. Over the years, Soul Invictus has been the main songwriting and the main project of Tony Wakeford, but over the years he's had several session members fill in, like violin, cello, piano, bass, guitar, keyboards, all that kind of stuff. Definitely again, a more neo-classical and neo-folk sounding project here, and for me, just some of my all-time favorite music. Just great stuff, man. Great stuff. Alright, so the next artist is, again, an all-time favorite and one I've been listening to for about 20 years now. And I can't honestly say this is my favorite album, but, a lot of their work from the late 80s and early 90s is just phenomenal. And, but I will say this was the first album I heard from this project, and so we're just going to go with it. So, this is Kurt 93's Of Ruin or Some Blazing Stare. Kurt 93 is the ongoing work of David Tibet, who, again, is an English writer and musician from England who, in the early days of Kurt 93, the band explored more experimental, industrial noise and dark ambient soundscapes, often intermingled with very strong occult themes. But as time would pass, they would, kind of go down the same path Death in June was going down, and go for this more, European folk sound, intermingled with a lot of that same, sort of atmospheric, music behind it. But interesting thing about Kurt 93 is, while David Tibet has always been the main lyricist and singer, he's always had a cast of different characters around him. Other important neo-folk musicians like Douglas Pierce from Death in June has collaborated with them. Tony Wakeford from Soul Invictus was on one of the older albums from the late 80s, and other musicians like Boyd Rice, John Balance from Coil, and Ian Reed from Fire and Ice was also a big was a part of the band in the late 80s. So a lot of the guys went on to bigger stuff kind of later on, were all, had some small role in Current 93 in the late 80s. But to describe Current 93's music is a bit of a challenge, because again, this is stuff that, even though it falls underneath that, that Neofolk umbrella, I don't know if there's necessarily any other project that sounds exactly like this. In fact, I'm sure of it, because of just Tibet's own very eccentric lyrics and the way he delivers his lyrics and his vocals. It's very special stuff. And since every album has basically had a revolving cast of musicians, no two albums have ever sounded alike. On this particular album, though, we had David Tibet with then new member Michael Cashmore and Stephen Stapleton, who was from the experimental industrial project Nurse with Wound. Stephen Stapleton was also a pretty regular member of Current 93 throughout the 80s, 90s, and this is like the early 2000s until he kind of went and did his own thing for a while, I guess, and just departed from the band. Current 93 is another one of those bands that has a very dark sound, and again, going back to my early 20s that I mentioned earlier, I was not in that good headspace, so this stuff really resonated with me. It's hard to describe the lyrics of Current 93 because they are so elusive and so, I guess, out there, and I know it's partially because, probably because David Tibet is a very eccentric individual and because he did a lot of drugs in the 80s, but regardless of that fact, it's music that is just, really spoke to me in a special way, and even though I don't overly examine lyrics, Current 93 is one of those bands where I would read the lyrics trying to make sense of it, usually to no avail, but it's really cool stuff, and it just, again, just stuff that really hit home with me once I heard it for the first time. So immediately interesting difference between Current 93 compared to Death in June and Soul Invictus is that the lyrics, while they are elusive, have had a much stronger, I guess, Christian and sort of impending kind of apocalypse feel to them. Tibet has always been fascinated by religion. I mean, like I said, going back to the early stuff, he was much more into the occult writings of Aleister Crowley, and then during the mid-'80s, he was more into paganism. Then by the late '80s, he started to get more into Christian mythology, and I guess he identifies as a Christian or some variation of that. But the lyrics took on more of I don't want to say Christian theme in a very literal way because they never were, but those themes were expressed, and but I don't know. It was performed in a very eccentric and special way that, is not, not gonna make anyone go this is Christian or whatever like that. It was never like that. It, even though he would use phrases like God is love or whatever like that, which is fine, whatever, I don't really give a shit. It was different, and the songs at times would even have something of a sort of weird, twisted, sort of nursery rhyme kind of feel to them. It's, I don't know, it's hard to describe. It's one of those projects where I feel like you just really need to hear it and you can make your own judgments of it, but Of Ruin or Some Blazing Stare or Thunder Perfect Mind or All the Pretty Little Horses are definitely the albums to start with this project, and if you again, if you like those, continue onward. The stuff before those albums was good. Even the earlier, the more soundscapey stuff is really fucking good, really dark, just haunting stuff, and even the stuff going up to the throughout the 90s and into the early 2000s is pretty good, but it kind of really goes downhill from there when some of the old guys that he was working with kind of, moved on to other stuff, and, he wasn't able to use them as session musicians anymore. But, yeah, a great project, and, just another fantastic artist in the Neofolk genre. So, on the front cover, we have, I don't know. Not sure I understand what's going on the front cover there, but obviously it's some sort of old-timey painting. The back cover, alright, So then the lyric, and I'm sorry, there's the CD. And one of the reasons why I've also really liked Kurt 93 over the years is because there's been sort of this underlining like cat theme throughout some of their recordings too. David DeBed being a huge feline fan, I guess you could say. And then there's the tray card. And there's a picture of the lineup for this recording. Steven Stapleton, David DeBed, and Michael Cashmore. Lyrics. Yeah, very, very interesting lyrics. I mean, it really, it begs you to sit down and read them and just, you know, to try and make sense of them, I suppose. But even if you don't, it's still great music. Yep, lyrics. And I mean, I remember I bought this CD off of eBay for like, oh gosh, I don't know, something like $5 or something like that back in the day. Just back in those days, no one cared about this kind of music, or very few people cared about it. I think it was such an eccentric form of music that, you know, you could have been sell the music. It was hard to sell it, and nowadays I suspect this original copy probably goes for a lot of money. Not that I would ever sell it, but you know, it's great stuff. And I know it's been reissued and it's on streaming services, so you know, again, just check it out. Kurt 93, Of Ruin or Some Blazing Stare.